wait till lunch. Okay, that's not quite flat. I'm Ann Forrest, and the title of my talk is Welcome to Your New Brain, Lessons from Concussion. And here's the roadmap. At first I'm going to tell you about what I learned about my brain from my concussion, why it's important to you, and why I'm so passionate about this message and how you can help me. Am I getting feedback from that?
It's good.
It's okay?
Good, yeah.
So I have a cognitive disability, and my brain doesn't work very well, not like it used to. And I want you to know that there is nothing more vulnerable than standing up in front of a group of smart and tech-savvy people when your brain doesn't work. So, and this is the first time that I've talked to a group of smart and tech-savvy people, and it's something that I want to do. I want to get the message out to you. But my brain, the last 2 weeks, has been telling me, do not stand up in front of that crowd. They could be a predator. They could eat me. So I've had to work with my brain, and I've told them you're a very receptive audience, so I hope you are. And I've also told my brain something that my brain knows is that you have to practice to get something to go well. But the first time is really hard. And that it'll get better, and I'll move farther up the learning curve if I can just get past the first one. And eventually the brain will get more efficient when you try to do things. It says, well, if we're going to keep going down that pathway, let's build that dirt road into a paved highway, and then eventually, if you're going to keep going down that road, let's make it into a superhighway. This is how our brain rewires and restructures, and it's how we learn, and it's a process called neuroplasticity. So brain injury, traumatic brain injury, which is what I have, is a significant issue in the United States. The CDC calculates it as 5.3 million Americans are living with the TBI. It's serious, that's roughly 2 in 100 Americans. This number is seriously underestimated because it doesn't include military, and it doesn't include people who fall out of the system, and as I'll tell you, it's very easy to fall out of the system. I was rear-ended in a car accident by the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. My head swung from side to side and back to forth. Neurons in all areas of my brain were either stretched or broken, and that meant that no signals could not go down them, or it was difficult to get signals down it. I drove away from my car accident, and I was mostly annoyed by the other drivers' inattention. Prior to my injury, I have a BA from Yale, a PhD from Duke. I was the senior economist at the Environmental Law Institute. I played varsity volleyball in college and was an Ivy League champion. I still played competitive sports, and I had a very active social life. About 36 hours after the accident, I woke up in the morning with nausea, chills, and the worst headache I've ever had. My colleagues told me to go see a doctor who wanted to keep me under observation and told me not to play volleyball. When my symptoms worsened, he referred me to a neurologist. And to give you an idea of the symptoms that were worsening, I had gone to the 4th of July at fireworks at the National Cathedral in Washington, away from the mall, and I thought the fireworks were going to fall on me. I couldn't keep them in the sky, and I couldn't recognize a colleague who I worked quite closely with that same 4th of July. In fact, after that accident, it was later identified I had 2nd grade math skills, third grade language skills, word-finding problems called aphasia, attention and memory issues, confusion, tremendous fatigue, and irritability. Of course, my injured brain couldn't identify these, and when the symptoms weren't happening, I thought I was fine. I would return to work soon, and there's one more symptom, actually there are 2 more. As time progressed, I began to realize that we are who our brains allow us to be, and when our brains change, we can't be ourselves. And so I didn't really know who I was. And then the symptom that I actually haven't told you about yet, which was the worst, was that I learned a lot about how the brain couldn't filter, how my brain couldn't filter. I'd be in a social situation or a restaurant and I would be running out screaming. My brain just couldn't tolerate it. And then, just like children, when they get overstimulated, I wouldn't be able to sleep. And because I couldn't get sleep, my cognition would get worse. And eventually, this would lead to quite a downward cycle where my immune system would get depressed, I'd get sick. I was working incredibly hard to just keep my life from going from terrible to worse. I was referred to a neurologist who correctly diagnosed me with a mild TBI or concussion. I'm very lucky that that happened. He told me to rest and return to work. And he told me that anxiety and depression go with the injured brain. The brain is trying to tell you something. He treated my headache. He began treatment of my headaches and no rehabilitation therapy. He also told me that I should get better in 6 months. If I didn't get better by 2 years, what I didn't get, I would never get back. But 2 years seemed like a really long time, far away, and I plan to be back to work very soon. That fall, I had to return to the neurologist quite a bit. There are lots of tests. In a follow-up visit with the neurologist, I was trying to read Time magazine and walked into the waiting room and realized that I couldn't remember what I just read. And I told the neurologist, hey, if I can't read, how am I going to get back to work? He told me that he didn't do eyes. So I was a little surprised. If he wasn't the person in the medical system who did eyes, then who did? This goes along with a lot of what we've been saying, right? So I used my network to get to a developmental optometrist, and my first rehabilitation was actually with him. Now, Dr. Frankie told me that he could help me, which was very, very exciting. He told me that my brain could change with hard work. He had eye exercises, which I could use, that I would learn how to use to teach my brain, to retrain my brain. And because he told me my brain could get better, he gave me a lot of hope. I was willing to work in the short term for long-term gain. I was willing to work very hard for long-term gain and to get my brain back. And he also told me that after the accident, my visual system was very inefficient. My eyes didn't track, I couldn't follow words, I had depth perception issues, and I had balance issues. He taught me that depth perception was one of the things that we learned in the crib, that we learn how to teach our brain where things are. We're reaching out of the crib. Something's got to teach our brain where things are. And that I really had to go back to early developmental periods in order to regain my depth perception. So sleep and the appropriate exercise were necessities. And he taught me that we needed to limit inputs to my brain. If my brain couldn't sleep, should tell me something, and the next time I should stay out of that situation. And lastly, he taught me about automaticity. What he said was with the vision therapy that I would begin to redevelop these pathways of automaticity, which is neuroplasticity in action. I had to work hard, and that the learning curve was going to be slow at first, but would increase exponentially. This was music to my ears. These were all terms that I understood with pre-injury PhD in economics. I understood efficiency. I wanted it back. I understood long-term gain, and I understood inputs and outputs. What you put into an economy is important in terms of what you get out, and to put the right inputs into an economy. Suddenly I realized that my brain was just like an economy, and I knew how to work with that, and I had some tools to develop it how I wanted to. Meanwhile, after tremendous work with my network, I got to see a treating neuropsychologist in DC. And she had a new statistic for me. 50% of people get better in 6 months. So why wasn't I better? she began to ask me questions about my psychological issues, to bring things into our brains before we can manipulate and concentrate with them and hence learn. And she taught me strategies, and I'm gonna, okay, now what am I supposed to, okay, my new, there we go. There we go. Is that, so that, it's a little weak up here, but she taught me strategies. She taught me that life has ups and downs, and that was, what was happening was when I was in a down, I couldn't get out of it. And you really want to do a, you want to figure out how to move forward, upward in the midst of all those ups and downs. And the reason why this is my son's drawing. We were listening to a lecture and I wanted to show it because it's not just the ups and downs and learning to climb. We were listening to a lecture about learning to walk in the dark by Barbara Taylor. And this is really the path of all of us, trying to figure out how to go through ups and downs in life and charting a course where we can continually go upwards towards where we want to go. And so this looked remarkably like the diagram that Liz had shown me. So she taught me how to turn my life around, which was very, very exciting. I could manage to live by myself independently. I could manage to do many more things with that cognitive rehab. And she also, the last thing she did was launch my speaking career. She said I needed to be able to speak in order to protect myself. I had spoken pre-injury a lot. She said it was the one skill that I still had from my injury. I needed to develop my own awareness, and speaking about brain injury was a way to develop my own awareness. And she gave me a process which has been useful for me since then. I gave my first speech to Dr. John Slayton's class at the University of Texas on web accessibility and cognitive disabilities. And most of that speech was about how the computer really couldn't help me, that I had a 20-minute limit, I had to get off of it. And I had not been able to I had gotten off the computer for 3 years. What Liz had helped me do was get to the point where I could actually be on the computer. So that was exciting to me, but the 19-year-old people there could not understand me at all. So neuroplasticity has continued to be an important part of my skill set, and I think I'm going on a little bit too long. Are you guys? Say what? I'm nearly done. Okay, so neuroplasticity has followed me. Neuroplasticity, the message of neuroplasticity is very, very important because of we've got to get all these people well. We've got the knowledge. As an economist, I know that we have a service economy. We've got to keep people learning, and we've got to get people back to work. We need all members of our economy, whether they're brilliant or their minds are everyday knives. We simply can't afford to pay them with long-term disability when we know it's cost-effective to give them treatment early on. Lesser developed countries, smaller economies are already struggling a huge deal with this. And then the last thing is that I want to say quickly, we've also got, we really need to solve the fact that with my cognitive and visual disabilities, I could not be on the computer. I couldn't get much information off the computer. And this fall, I entered the open air contest through Nobility and worked with a team to make my website accessible to people with my disabilities. Researchers in brain injury said this was an absolutely great idea, but that there was no research on it. And I show you this. My team made this accessibility both empowered me, but made my brain whole. This was my business card before. This is the back of my business card before I entered the competition with a damaged brain, and I've moved to a whole brain. And I will put, since I'm running out of time and we've all got great things to talk about, I will put suggestions on the website. I'd like help translating the message of plasticity. I'd like help translating the message of Computer Frontier. The Open Air Rally through Nobility is a great place to learn about cognitive skills. And the Canadian Ontario Neurotrauma Foundation actually has guidelines for persistent symptoms, so translating those for people around the world would be very helpful. And I will allow questions.